All right, so you want to like really get good at setting goals, like really nail it.
Yeah, I think everyone wants to get better at that.
Yeah, and you sent over this guide, Setting Your Goals and Reaching Them. It's from Bournemouth University, right?
Right.
And this thing is, I mean, it's jam-packed with advice. It's not just kind of like vague resolution, This is like a roadmap to actually like get you where you want to be.
It is. And it's, they start off with this idea of showing up at the airport, bags packed, passport ready, but you have no idea where you want to go.
Oh, I've done that.
And have you ever felt like that in life? Just kind of like,
Oh, all the time.
yeah,
Especially, well, I mean, not all the time, but like there are definitely times I've felt like that. Like, I remember one time I booked a flight to Iceland
oh, wow.
just on a whim. I was like adventure, but then I realized I had like no warm clothes and I hadn't even thought about like when is the best time to see the Northern Lights? Complete planning fail.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what they're getting at in the guide, right?
And that's exactly what the guide is trying to emphasize. Because we can put so much effort into things in our lives, but if we don't have a clear destination in mind, we're just kind of bouncing around, just reacting to whatever comes up instead of actually designing the life that we want.
Right. So goals are like our compass then, kind of helping us figure out like which way to go. But there are so many different types of goals, right?
Right.
Like where do you even start with all of this?
Well, the guide kind of breaks it down into two main categories. You've got visionary goals and practical goals. So the visionary goals, those are the big picture ones, the things that really light you up and get you excited thinking about years down the line.
Okay, so that's like, dreaming of opening your own business or writing a book or traveling the world.
Exactly. Things that give you a sense of purpose and direction.
Right, and they can be, it can be any time frame you want, right?
Yeah, the guide emphasizes that.
It doesn't have to be like, I'm going to do this in the next 5 years. It could be long out shorter.
Yeah, exactly. It could be 5 years. It could be 10 years. It could even be like, what do I want to achieve this year?
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. So it's not like some arbitrary timeline. It's like what works for you.
Exactly.
So how do those practical goals fit in with the visionary ones?
So practical goals are like the stepping stones to those big visionary goals.
Okay.
They are the concrete actions you can take day by day, week by week, to move closer to that ultimate destination.
So it's like breaking those big dreams down into smaller, manageable pieces.
Exactly.
So like if your big dream is to write a book, a practical goal might be like writing 1,000 words every day or taking a writing class.
Absolutely. Or finding a writing buddy, someone to hold you accountable.
Yeah. And they talk about quick wins in this guide too.
Right, yeah.
I like that idea.
Yeah, focusing on those quick wins in the first month.
So that's like the first things you do to get that momentum going.
Exactly. So even if your visionary goal is years away, those initial practical steps make it feel more real.
It's like you're actually making progress, right?
Right. It's less daunting, more attainable.
It's like those initial steps, like when you're planning a trip, like booking the flight, getting your passport, doing the initial research. That gets you excited.
Totally.
So now you mentioned earlier, like having a system in place, a framework to stay on track. Does the guide have any tools for that? To make those practical goals even better?
Absolutely. They talk about the SMART goal framework. It's a classic. It's super popular for a reason. It helps you make sure your goals are, smart.
Okay, so break it down for us. What does SMART actually mean?
All right, so SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound.
Okay.
So let's say, for example, you have this goal, I want to improve my fitness, which is great, but a little vague.
Right.
A SMART goal would be something like, I want to be able to run a 5K in under 30 minutes by the end of next month.
So now it's like super clear what you're actually working towards. And you know when you've achieved it, right?
Exactly. It takes all the guesswork out of it.
I like that. And it seems like that could apply to anything, really.
Yeah. It can apply to personal development, your career, creative projects. It's really versatile.
Like a universal tool.
Yeah.
But let's be real. Life rarely goes according to plan. So how does the guide deal with the whole like flexibility thing when it comes to goal setting?
That's where it gets really interesting. The guide actually emphasizes that you have to be flexible. It doesn't advocate for being rigid with your plans because you're going to hit those unexpected obstacles. Things are going to change.
Right. So it's not about beating yourself up when things don't go perfectly.
No, it's about viewing those bumps in the road as opportunities to learn and adapt.
Okay, so it's not about like having everything figured out perfectly from the start. It's more about adapting as you go along.
Exactly.
We've already covered so much. Like we went from feeling kind of lost and aimless, like showing up at the airport, not knowing where to go, to now we've got a compass, we've got a plan, and we're flexible. No.
Absolutely. And we've just scratched the surface.
Really?
There's so much more in this guide. There are tips for visualizing success, overcoming procrastination, staying motivated, all kinds of stuff.
All right, well, buckle up because we're about to take this goal-setting deep dive to a whole new level.
Welcome back. We were talking about flexibility before the break,
Right.
being able to adapt your goals as you go. But what happens when those roadblocks come up, those inevitable challenges?
Right, because it's so easy to just get discouraged, especially if you hit a wall.
It is.
Or you realize your initial plan just isn't really working. I mean, it happens,
Yeah.
like the guide mentions visualization.
Right.
And honestly, I'm always a little skeptical about that. Like, is that really as powerful as people say it is?
Visualization, it might sound a bit woo-woo to some people.
Yeah, kind of.
But there's actually a lot of research out there
Really?
that shows it can be really effective. It's not just wishful thinking. It's about creating a vivid mental image of yourself achieving that goal, using all your senses.
So you're like really immersing yourself in it.
Exactly. Have you ever gotten really excited about an upcoming trip?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like last year, my friends and I went hiking in Yosemite.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and we spent weeks just looking at photos, trail maps, just imagining like what it would be like to be there.
Yeah.
By the time we got there, it was like we already knew the place, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that just like made it so much more exciting.
That's a great example because that's the kind of mental engagement the guide is talking about. By vividly picturing yourself achieving your goal. Let's say you want to run a 5K, right? Imagine yourself crossing that finish line, hearing the crowd cheering, feeling that sense of accomplishment. You're basically giving your brain a preview of the reward.
Oh, I see. So it's like tricking your brain into thinking it's already happened.
In a way, it makes it feel more real, more tangible.
And that makes it more likely you'll actually stick with it.
Right.
But what about those goals that feel like they're more about meeting other people's expectations?
Yeah.
Like they're not really what you want.
That's such a good point. And it's something the guide really emphasizes.
Yeah.
It's so easy to fall into that trap of pursuing goals that we think we should be pursuing based on what other people think or societal pressures.
Right. It's like what you see on social media.
Exactly. But if those goals aren't aligned with your values, with your passions, it's likely you're going to end up feeling burned out.
You're not going to be happy even if you achieve it.
Exactly. So the guide really encourages taking some time for self-reflection.
Like really digging deep.
Yeah. Ask yourself, what truly brings you joy? What are you really passionate about? Those are the goals that are going to light you up.
Those are the ones that are going to keep you motivated.
Right.
But what if you have multiple goals?
Yeah.
Like you're excited about a lot of things.
That's where this analogy of the wheel comes in.
Oh, yeah, I read about that.
So imagine your life as a wheel, and each spoke represents a different area. Your health, relationships, career, personal growth, finances,
So a strong wheel needs all of its spokes to be in good shape.
Exactly. And it's the same with our lives. To feel truly balanced, fulfilled, we need to give attention to each of these areas. It's not about neglecting one to focus on another. It's about finding that rhythm that works for you.
So you're diversifying your investments, but for your life.
That's a great way to put it. Instead of putting all your eggs in one basket, you're spreading your energy and creating this well-rounded foundation for overall well-being.
I like that.
Yeah.
But even with this kind of balanced approach, those individual goals, they can still feel kind of overwhelming.
Oh, yeah.
How do you break those down into, smaller pieces so you can actually make progress?
That's where the SMART framework comes in handy again.
Okay.
Remember, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Let's go back to that example of wanting to write a children's book.
Okay.
A practical goal might be to write for 30 minutes every day. But we want to make it smarter.
Right.
So how about write one illustrated page of my children's book every morning before work for the next month?
Wow. Okay, that is much more specific.
Right. Now it's crystal clear what you need to do, when, and how you're going to track your progress.
And that before work part, that adds a level of accountability, right?
Absolutely. No more pushing it off to later.
Right.
It's right there in your schedule.
I like it.
And, by making it smart, you transform it from just an intention into an action.
Right, with a deadline.
Exactly.
So it's more likely you'll actually do it.
Right. But even with the best plans and the smartest goals, sometimes life just gets in the way.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like unexpected deadlines at work, family stuff, or just those days when you wake up and you just feel exhausted.
Totally. It happens to all of us. So the guide emphasizes two key things: self-compassion
Okay.
and celebrating progress. Because those setbacks, they're normal.
They are.
It's not a sign of failure. Life is unpredictable.
Right.
So instead of beating yourself up when things don't go according to plan,
Yeah.
treat yourself with the same kindness you would offer a friend.
Right, because you wouldn't tell a friend they were a failure if they missed a workout or something. Right.
Exactly. You'd offer support and encouragement.
So we should do that for ourselves too.
Absolutely. And that's where celebrating progress comes in.
Okay.
Because it's easy to get so caught up in what we haven't accomplished yet
Right.
that we forget to acknowledge how far we've come.
Yeah, you're right.
So take time to celebrate those wins, big or small.
I think that's a really good point.
It's like giving yourself those little bursts of positive reinforcement along the way.
Instead of just focusing on that end goal,
Exactly.
you're enjoying the journey too.
Right. So it makes the whole process less daunting.
And those positive emotions, they can really help with motivation, right?
Absolutely. They make you more resilient, too, when those future challenges inevitably come up.
So we've talked a lot about the practical side of setting goals, but there's also this mental aspect, right? Our mindset plays a huge role in whether or not we achieve those goals.
Totally. And, self-doubt, those negative thought patterns, they can be major roadblocks.
They can.
Those voices that say things like, you're not good enough.
Oh, yeah. Or like, what's the point of even trying?
Exactly. Those voices are so insidious.
They are hard to silence.
They are. But the guide offers some really helpful ways to manage them.
Okay.
So the first step is just becoming aware of them.
Like noticing when they pop up.
Exactly. And pay attention to that language they use.
You mean the language the voices use?
Yeah. And then start questioning those stories.
Okay.
Like, are they really true? Is there any evidence to support them?
So you're kind of like putting them on trial.
Exactly. Examining the evidence.
To see if they really hold up.
Right. And often when we really look at them closely, we realize they're based on fear or insecurity or past experiences.
Things that aren't even relevant anymore.
Exactly.
So once we've kind of questioned those thoughts, we can start to reframe them.
Exactly. So instead of saying, I can't do this, try saying, this is going to be tough, but I'm going to learn and grow.
So it's like you're shifting your perspective.
Right. And it's amazing how even small changes in the way we talk to ourselves
Yeah.
can make a huge difference in our mindset and motivation.
That takes practice, right?
It does. It's not like you're going to become a positive thinking guru overnight.
Yeah, you're right.
It's a process.
Right. And the guide talks about that, right? Like this is an ongoing thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about being patient with yourself, celebrating those small wins, and just consistently choosing to focus on your strengths.
Rather than getting caught up in those negative thoughts.
Right. It's about focusing on what you can do.
I like that. And, even with a positive mindset and a solid plan, there's still that one thing that always gets in the way for me.
What's that?
Procrastination.
Oh, yeah, procrastination. We all do it.
Getting things, especially those tasks that feel big or scary.
Or boring.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the guide actually has some surprisingly good strategies for dealing with that.
Okay, so we're back and we're talking about procrastination.
Procrastination.
And everyone does it, right?
Everyone does it. It's a universal struggle.
Yeah, putting things off, especially when they just seem like so much work.
Especially when they feel really big and scary.
Or
boring, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But the guide, they offer some really, surprisingly effective strategies for dealing with it.
Okay, good.
One of the most powerful ones is something we touched on earlier, breaking down those large tasks
Oh, right.
into smaller,
Manageable steps.
more manageable steps. Exactly.
So instead of looking at this huge mountain of work,
Right.
you're kind of making it into smaller hills to climb.
Exactly. It's like, let's say your goal is to declutter your entire house.
Oh, that's a good one.
That can feel really overwhelming.
Very overwhelming.
But if you break it down into smaller chunks,
Okay.
like, okay, I'm going to tackle one drawer today,
Right.
one shelf tomorrow, just one corner of a room,
Suddenly it seems doable.
it feels much more doable. It's like, how do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time, exactly. And you build momentum that way.
Right. You don't get overwhelmed by the whole thing.
Exactly. And, the guide also emphasizes the importance of creating a supportive environment for yourself.
Ah,
So that means minimizing distractions,
right.
setting boundaries, surrounding yourself with people who are going to encourage and support you.
So you're designing your environment to help you succeed
Exactly.
instead of making it harder.
Exactly. Like create a dedicated workspace where you can focus,
Yeah, get rid of the clutter.
Get rid of the clutter. Let people know you need some uninterrupted time,
That's good.
It's all about setting yourself up for success.
I like that.
Yeah, and, we talked about this earlier, but it's really important to celebrate those accomplishments along the way.
Oh, yeah, the celebrations.
The celebration.
Those are important.
They are, no matter how small they seem, like treat yourself to something you enjoy.
Right.
Schedule a fun outing with friends. Just take a few moments to appreciate how far you've come.
Acknowledge your effort.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's about enjoying the whole journey, not just waiting for the end goal.
Exactly. It's about those little bursts of joy along the way.
Right, it makes it more fun.
It does. And those positive emotions, they really fuel your motivation.
They do.
So you're more likely to stick with it even when things get tough.
That makes sense. And we can't forget about mindset, right?
Mindset is huge, yes.
Like our thoughts, our beliefs, they have such a big impact on whether or not we actually achieve our goals.
They really do. And, we all have those moments of self-doubt,
We do.
those negative thoughts that creep in.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
So the guide, they offer some tips for dealing with those too.
Okay.
First step, just notice them.
Notice when they happen.
When they happen, pay attention to how you're talking to yourself. Are you being kind, encouraging, or are you being super critical?
Yeah, like we're often so much harder on ourselves than we would ever be on anyone else.
It's true.
Like we have this inner critic that just won't shut up.
We do. And, the guide says we should challenge those thoughts.
Okay.
Like, is it really true that you're not good enough? What evidence do you have?
Right, so you're putting those thoughts on trial.
Exactly. You're examining the evidence.
Seeing if they hold up.
Right. And often when we do that,
Yeah.
we realize those thoughts are based on fear, past experiences.
Stuff that doesn't even matter anymore.
Right, exactly.
So once we've kind of questioned those negative thoughts, we can start to replace them with more positive ones.
Exactly. So instead of saying, I can't do this,
Right.
try saying, this might be tough, but I'm willing to try.
Yeah, that's a good
It's
one.
about shifting your perspective.
Yeah, changing that inner dialogue.
Exactly. And even small changes can make a big difference.
That's encouraging.
It is. It takes time and practice, though.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You're not going to become this, super positive person overnight.
Right, it's a process.
It's a process, yeah.
It's a journey.
Exactly. And the guide emphasizes that.
Yeah.
It's about being patient with yourself, celebrating those small wins, and just consistently choosing to focus on your strengths
I like that.
rather than your weaknesses.
Oh, as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some of the big takeaways?
I really hope people remember that setting goals, it's not about being perfect
It's not about being perfect.
or having this rigid plan.
Right.
It's about creating a roadmap for a life that feels more intentional and fulfilling and joyful.
And, it's about being kind to yourself along the way.
Absolutely. Celebrate the progress, learn from the setback.
Yeah, it's all part of the process.
It is. And it's never too late to set a new goal
Right.
or reignite an old dream.
Exactly.
Just choose to approach life with a little more intention.
That's it. So what are you waiting for?
Go set some goals.
Happy goal setting, everyone. Say AT.